Hey there, everybody. My name is Sarah Elise, and I am an astrologer in Toronto, Canada. And this is a video being put out on June the 13th, Monday, in preparation and celebration of our beautiful full moon in Sagittarius that's coming in tomorrow in the wee hours of the morning. It should be at its fullness approximately 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, a Sagittarius full moon is one of my favorites. Let's take a look at what it's inviting us to do. Now, it's a spiritual full moon. We have Neptune squaring the full moon, but what does spiritual mean? I think what it means is essentially we're being asked to see through all of our bullshit right now, and we're coming right up against it. There's this delusionary impulse to get lost a little bit in the mental space, but the invitation right now is to kind of notice the delusion and elevate a little bit above it, right? This full moon is about truth, and it's about seeing what is real, and it's about identifying what we've been living in versus what we want to be living in. It's about taking a position of sovereignty and power and control and lifting up into our highest potential. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the architecture of consciousness that relates to Gemini and Sag as an archetypal polarity, because I feel like it's really important to understand what truth means in terms of Sagittarian archetype. I mean, truth, there are many versions of truth, right? But there is one ultimate truth, and regardless of the religion that you perceive or that you follow or that you tune into, there's going to be a different way of describing that ultimate truth. But I suppose as a human being, we have access to our own ultimate truth. And our goal in life, I think on many levels, is to step into that ultimate truth that we are, and to really be able to live our highest truth, right? To live our highest self, to live our highest potential, and to go out from that place of knowing ourself and knowing our wholeness and our truth, and to go into life and to create a life of integrity from that place of knowing, that place of wisdom. It's as though all of us were on a sacred quest to know our own holy grail, right? Our own cup of wisdom, and our own cup of goodness, our own cup of grace and spiritual meaning. Yeah. So but how do we do that? And for me, because I like to study consciousness in terms of structure, and I like to understand the archetypes in terms of what is the invitation in our body and what is in the invitation in our own reality. I would like to explain to you how Gemini Sagittarius is discussed in the esoteric astrology tradition. Okay, I find it really interesting. And some of you in my community may have already heard this, and some of you may not. So in esoteric astrology, we talk about archetype as in terms of the evolution of consciousness and how we grow up, as I said, on this quest to find our inner truth and to come into a state of alignment so that we can be in service on the earth, so that we can take our place on the planet and be in service to each other and live harmoniously and harmonically with each other, instead of taking and depleting the field and engaging in the struggle of survival and the struggle of me. So Sagittarius is the archetype of the true human. It represents that part of us that transcends the me, not because it obliterates it, but because it becomes the more than it, or it becomes the triumph of it. So in the human kingdom, we have the axis of Taurus and Scorpio, and then we have the Sagittarius. So these three archetypes rule the human kingdom. And Taurus and Scorpio are really interesting because they are our nodal axis right now. So a lot of us on the collective level are in this Taurian Scorpionic battle. And what is the battle of Taurus Scorpio? Well, it's the battle of building form and holding on to it and then destroying it. right? There's this chaos that's created between Taurus and Scorpio. The Scorpio wants to go in and it wants to tear things apart and it wants to rip them and sunder and it wants to get into the emotional depths of it and it wants to obliterate it, it wants to destroy it. And then the Taurus wants to just hold on. It wants to create, it wants to build, it wants to stabilize, it wants to know, it wants to be still with it, it wants to hold on to it, it wants to kind of like create something that's really stable and abiding. And then Scorpio comes in and destroys that form, right? Maybe that form is a belief, maybe it's a thought form, maybe it's a habit, maybe it's an addiction. And Scorpio will come in and it will penetrate into the physical matter of whatever it is we've created and it will tear it apart. Now, this Scorpio-Taurus axis creates a pendulum quality of going back and forth between this duality. And this is very much a part of the human experience, right? We are incredible creators, but we are also incredible destroyers. And that's how we evolve. And it's totally natural for us. But when we find our way into the Sagittarius archetype, we find balance. It's the Sagittarius archetype is about kind of triumph over matter. It's about triumph over matter. It's about how do we take what we are as physical people, like how do we master our animal? Basic bottom line, it's a very Sagittarian comment. How do we master our animal? Straightforward and blunt. Sag teaches us how, okay? Sagittarius as an archetype is a three-pronged archetype. So it has a three-level evolution. At the first level of its evolution, it is a centaur where the half man and half horse are unified and they act as one. And the horse's impulses control the man. At this point in the Sagittarius archetype's development, it's really a rut and strut activity. So at here, the Sagittarius is very ruled by its lower self, its lower chakras, which rule survival, getting, experiencing something, pleasure, propagation of the species, getting more, right? There's like a real indulgence quality to the animal nature. It likes to take what it wants and when it wants it, and then it wants a little bit more, and it's going to take some from you because it really doesn't care about you. It just only cares about itself. So there's this like really kind of like big sort of urgy drive quality at this lower Sagittarius level. Now it's a lot of fun but it can be very indulgent. Now at the middle level, the man becomes knighted, so he is on now a quest for meaning of himself. What is the truth of me? And he can now ride the horse, and the horse has its I don't know, what do you call horse things that knights used to put on their horses? They used to kit their horses out in all kinds of fancy materials and saddles and things like that. And now the man is riding the horse and he is controlling it. He is still part of the horse and the horse is part of him, but the man part is in control. And this represents the quality of the human, right? Becoming aware of the duality. You're still in the duality. You're still being impacted by your primal nature or your animal impulses, but you have enough of your mental faculty on, like enough of your higher mind on, that you don't need to abide by those impulses and just act them out unconsciously. And the third part of the Sagittarius archetype is when the knight realizes that the truth he's looking for is beyond him completely. And at this point, the archetype becomes focused on the tip of the arrow. The Sagittarius is a centaur who has a bow and arrow. He's holding it and he's pulling the bow string back, and his entire concentration, this is really, really important to the alchemy of the archetype. His entire focus is on the tip of the arrow, and the arrow is pointing to God. That is when Sagittarius comes into the third eye. And this is what Sagittarius represents, essentially, is the third eye. If any of you have studied kind of Hinduism or Buddhism or any of the Eastern philosophies, or if you are into the New Age world, you may have come across the concept of the third eye, which is essentially the pineal gland that's in, it's here. I mean, the pictures of all of the, like the almond shaped pineal glands, they've been found through Egypt. And we've known about the pineal gland for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But for some reason, when we moved into the Piscean age, you know, the indoctrination by the Christian church and the Catholic church and things, mystical experiences became the sign of the devil. So we sort of shut that down, right? But each one of us has a third eye, and it's a very, very important part of what we are. And when you elevate above the duality of your human nature, and open the third eye, all of a sudden you are standing at the top of what would normally be a very uncomfortable pendulum, but you lift up and you create this stable form, which is a triangle, right? It's like an incredibly stable geometry is the triangle. So Sagittarius represents our quest for truth. And this is the truth we're looking for. We're looking for the truth that we see when we elevate above duality. When you're at the level of duality, all you see is the back and forth argument. All you see is the, oh, here, no, here, no, here, no, here, no, here. And it never ends, right? All you have is the mood swing over here or over there, or the fight over here, over there. How many of you have fought with your spouse before? And there's just no resolution. Like, it's just like basically running in a circle. The dog is eating his tail. There's no way you can get out of this loop of hell that you've created for yourself and are now experiencing again. That's kind of what it's like when we're not lifting up into the higher mind. And the higher mind is what this big full moon is all about today. It's about letting ourselves rest, I think, in a sense of clarity, or opening up, or being able to articulate to ourselves even, or to experience what our highest truth might be. Like, how do we access that part of us that is beyond the myopia of our own dualistic nature? How do we access that part of us that is higher than our human self? That's a really big question to be asking at this full moon. Can we see the truth as it is? Can we really, really see it? Can we see it without being polarized over here or polarized over there? Can we see the big picture of whatever situation we're in our life? Can we detach enough to lift up and look down at our situation, down at who we are, down at our life, down at ourselves, not in a way that diminishes what we are or looks down on it, like making it wrong, but in a way that helps to see the full range of the experience and doesn't get stuck with one versus the other being correct. It's very mediating, right? When you step above and you look down, there's a sense of balance that is created, right? And there's a sense of wisdom that comes from that. So Gemini is the architecture of the lower mind, and Sag is the architecture of the higher mind, which is the third eye. The lower mind and the higher mind are supposed to work together. They're supposed to be unified. There's supposed to be a fluid relationship between the two. But what often happens is that we get overly identified with the lower mind. And the lower mind, when we're not able to kind of lift up into our heart and into our higher mind, we don't realize what else is available for us. We really just think that we are our pain, or we think that we are the story, or we think that we are the suffering, or we think that surely we're right and they're wrong, or they're wrong and we're right. It doesn't matter. It's just, it's like getting caught in a myopia of drama and trauma. And that's what many times you will notice if you're coming from your navel, from your belly button, if you're coming from your wounding or your suffering, then you're likely in the lower mind. And there's usually a ruminatory story that goes along with that suffering, and that you repeat that story to yourself, or you try to work the suffering out by telling yourself that story again and again and again. Sorry, I'm realizing that the light is a little bit bright here. My apologies for looking like a blinding light. but I can't quite get away from it. Anyway, at this full moon, and in this entire month of Gemini, what has really been coming forward for me is this ability that Gemini has to connect the entire thing, because Gemini is that fabric of mind that can go all the way from the celestial down to the very, very bottom of our human self, like from the top to the bottom. Gemini holds the entire potential and can use its mind to witness the entire potential. And Gemini builds this bridge between the lower and the higher self called the Antakarana. And it is by building that bridge that we earn the right to elevate up and create a cohesive relationship with higher mind and with third eye. And when we enter the third eye, what often happens, or what is a natural next step is to open the Muladhara Chakra, which is the celestial chakra, and to start to actually have transcendental experiences and mystical experiences, right? Like the third eye is kind of the gate to that. So in Gemini season, it's been a lot of kind of looking at shadow, seeing it, identifying it, but then also looking up and seeing it and identifying it. And I think that at this full moon, there is this opportunity, like whatever it is that you've been wrestling with or noticing, whatever the issue is that you've been witnessing and communicating with, whatever the story is that you've been telling to yourself these last few weeks, this is the opportunity for you to see it from this higher vantage point. Now, the risk or the danger at this full moon is that you will get swept in by delusional astral projection onto the issue. But the opportunity is that you can come into clear alignment and see through the illusion, see through the astral level, and come into a clear place of wisdom and knowing and spiritual understanding of the issue. Because we've got Neptune in Pisces, like really, really squaring the full moon. So there's Pisces always lends itself to confusion and to delusion, particularly Neptune in Pisces, and to astral kind of like it's very, there's a lot of emotion that can sort of get stirred up when Neptune is directly squaring the sun and the moon, and we can really be confronted with a lot of chaos in our emotional body. Okay, so the gift of this full moon will be, can we literally, like, can we take a moment and make sacred the experience that we're having? Like, can we take a moment and really make sure we're lifting up into our heart, out of our higher self, and into our higher mind? And this alignment is available for everybody. This is what we are. Like, this is our architecture. So every one of us can choose to step in and up if we want to. It's your job, really. It's your God-given birthright to be able to stand up in yourself and stand in your truth. That's it. And no amount of emotional confusion or emotional dreaming or emotional storytelling can get in your way of that. That's just your God-given nature. So the opportunity, I think, is for us to see that life is energizing us in a way that will help us to do that, right? That there are messages, or there are gifts, or there are frequencies that are coming at us and confronting us, saying, well, can you choose higher? Can you step above the line? Can you see that with more clarity? How do you see the gift in the situation rather than just the challenge? How do you identify with the lesson rather than just the duality? There are all these different ways that we can re-emphasize our connection to the wholeness and the unified field of love and compassion, rather than delusion and suffering and victimhood and all of the astral emotional stuff that can really get triggered, or martyrdom or spiritual delusion, or like all the stuff that the Neptune and Pisces can kind of trick you into tripping over. Yeah. I don't know if this makes any sense, because I have Neptune directly squaring my Mercury right now, and the sun is sitting right on my Mercury today. impacted by this full moon. So I'm not feeling like I have the clearest ability to communicate at the moment. And I think that's a lot of how this full moon is going to feel, is that we might not really want to be using our words to communicate. We really might not want to be like hanging out in the small details, right? Trying to organize our thoughts. Like this is in my opinion, this is actually quite a spiritual full moon. And I feel like there is this opportunity to kind of give yourself permission to just breathe, come into yourself, come into your heart, come into your stillness, open up your mind, open your third eye, rest in yourself, and just experience the joy of being human. It's so simple. It's so easy, right? And I love the fact that we have Venus sitting on the North Node in Taurus. We are very quickly coming into a Uranus on the North Node in Taurus in the next couple of weeks. And we are all as a collective learning about how to come into peace and calm and stillness, embodiment. Life is and should be a pleasure to live, especially at this full moon. There's this grace that's being offered, right? There's this warmth or this love that's available. And so that's my take on it. I'm sure many other astrologers will have a different way of looking at this full moon. But for me, I'm going to take a look. I'm going to stop. I'm going to work on coming into higher mind and into my higher self. I'm going to work on staying in the peace, staying in the calm, rather than getting pulled into the chaos. And I'm going to see what I can see. I'm going to take a look. I'm going to see if I get any insights, right? The full moon is often a time to receive insight, to receive awareness. Things are very clear at the full moon. We can really see what's going on. We can see where we're getting stuck. We can see what we've manifested. We can see who we are. We step in at the full moon into the fullness of what we are as we get ready to then begin the decline into the next new moon cycle, right? Which will be the Cancer Capricorn axis. So at this point, this is a really great time for you to step in and see yourself completely. Honor yourself and your truth as best you are able. Look at the hard things and the good things from an elevated place of detachment, seeing both as part of the experience, and hold them, if you can, from above, so that you're not getting churned up in the duality nature of the complexity of being a human being. Okay, I think I've talked enough. I'm going to stop this video. I hope this was useful to you, and please leave a comment or a question if you have it, and I'll try to answer. Bye.